All right, everyone, welcome back once again to this Beefcast production. I'm your casting host, Beef. Going into a second series today. A little bit of an uncommon occurrence, but last series just got me so pumped I wanted another. This time it's going to be another mirror match, but a TVT. There's going to be some real heavy hitters here from both of these teams. Both of these players, big fan favorites, and I know favorite players of mine, which is why I'm so excited to cast this series. Let's get right into it. Our first game of this best of 5 series coming out of Assembly Summer 2012, Group Stage number 2, the round of 16. Here on Daybreak, going to be between these two players in the top right-hand corner. He is the absolutely unstoppable force lately, winning so much stuff, looking so good. We even get to have an entire team named after him, playing for Team Taeja, aka Team Liquid. He is Liquid's Taeja. And his opponent, playing for Team Evil Geniuses, the Blue Terran, the Devil Terran himself, hailing from Great Britain. He is Evil Geniuses DeMuslim. Oh man, I'm looking forward to this series. I'm looking forward to this series so much. DeMuslim is just absolutely one of my favorite players, and Taeja is just such an unstoppable force lately, winning everything that he comes in contact with. So we'll see how this series does end up going. Both players going to be dropping a 13 barracks. Now the difference in locations here is something a little bit notable. The barracks for DeMuslim not going to be blocking the ramp and not going to be hidden. So just kind of right there in the middle. Whereas the barracks over here for our Liquid player is going to be on the side over here, a little bit of a Makarex, kind of hidden so that he might try to fake his opponent out, thinking that his opponent might be looking at a proxy rack scenario. But right now there is just a single barracks going down. SCV is going to be making their way out for both of these players, want to get a scout on their opponents, and neither player choosing to block their ramp. So this is something that's a little bit uncommon, I would say. Most of these players do choose to block their ramp, especially if they're trying to play a little bit of mind games on their opponent. But right now these players are going to be mirroring each other absolutely perfectly. 16 orbital command center going to be going down there as a Marine does start as well. Both SCVs going to be able to scout that, but Taeja dropping that CC. The SCV is going to be able to see the command center going down. And so with that early command center, we'll see how DeMuslim chooses to react, and it is going to be with a command center of his own. So both these players are opting to go into a little bit more macro-oriented game here, and I have absolutely no problem with that. As much fun as it is casting all the Marine aggression and all that kind of stuff, I love casting everything about this series, everything about this matchup. It's going to be awesome. Second barracks going to be going down here for our Liquid player, the first deviation really in this matchup so far, and we'll see what DeMuslim chooses to do as well. DeMuslim, in fact, going for a third command center, going super economical at this point, and I like this out of DeMuslim quite a bit, knowing that his opponent is typically a player that will try to do something similar, going to be dropping a third command center of his own. Taeja going to be following up with a couple of gases here, so looking to get that tech up a little bit faster. We'll see what tech he does in fact choose, whether it's going to be something like a Cloaked Banshee play, whether it's going to be early upgrades, or whether he could even be going into mech. That would be something fun to cast, certainly. Second orbital command going to start morphing down here for the Liquid player. Back at home for DeMuslim, dropping a couple of these barracks, going all the way up to 3 for the time being, as gases number 1 and 2 do in fact start. So with both those gases going up, he's going to be looking for a tech play of his own. Tech lab going to be going down here for our Liquid player. I'd like to see possibly a stim. There we go. Stim going to be started. Very long upgrade needs to be started very soon so that they can hit any kind of a timing. Even a couple of Marines that are kind of rallied down here, going to be making their way across the map, want to do a little bit of scouting as they look at their opponent's base, because right now Moon does not really know a whole lot about what's going on in his opponent's base. He doesn't even know that there's a command center down. So even going to be using these Marines right now to split up and look for any kind of proxies, look for any kind of hidden expansions. Just covering all of his bases right now is our Liquid player. Back at home for Taeja, still not knowing exactly what's going on. DeMuslim, however, had a pretty decent read on his opponent, knowing that that command center was in fact down. So Moon, he's taken a little bit of a gamble here, thinking that, okay, DeMuslim's going to be dropping that CC. He has to drop that CC. For all he knows, DeMuslim could still be on one base, and there could be 5 Cloaked Banshees going to be breaking down his front door here in just a moment. But fortunately for him, there are not. DeMuslim has, in fact, gone even more economically greedy than Taeja. With both these engineering bays going down, double upgrades will start very soon here. The first is going to be starting just right now. Factory going to be coming down, as it looks like this is going to be a second major deviation for these players. Third command center going to be coming down as well, but with that factory coming down, we could be looking at something like very early medevacs, or we could start some relatively early tank production here from our liquid player. We'll see how the factory is going to be in fact used, and the engineering bay going to start upgrades as well. What does this factory build? Nothing right now. Double upgrades going to be started for both players as factory comes down for DeMuslim. So these guys going roughly the same route, although the starport has started finally with the reactor. So very early medevacs, going to be wanting to use those to increase the mobility of his army and make sure that when those Marines stim, which is going to be finishing up here in just a second, they can get some of their health back. Marines going to be meeting each other in the middle here. The upgrades are quite a bit faster for DeMuslim. The +1 is going to be quite a bit sooner, so we'll see how that does come into play as the Selnaga Watchtower does change hands there, with our two players going to be trying to play a game of cat and mouse, neither one of them wanting to really deviate from the heavy Marine build, the heavy medevac follow-up. No tanks going to be added just yet. They simply don't have the gas for it right now. But as tanks do start making their way into these compositions, that's going to be when it comes a lot more down to positioning. Who's going to be able to get the drop on their opponent? Who's going to be able to get the superior position and take the economic lead as a result when they have to try to evacuate a base from a drop, something like that. So we'll see how that does in fact play into this. Armory going to be starting at home for DeMuslim, as he's going to be wanting to continue his upgrades, starting 2-2 relatively soon here, and even adding on more racks as his third base does in fact start. The medevac production finally going to be starting here for DeMuslim, as he's going to be a total of 2 medevacs behind his opponent, 2 full medevacs behind. And Tech Lab going to be added here with the factory, as his opponent's Tech Lab starts at the exact same time. These players are going to be pumping out tanks at roughly the same rate, the same starting number, unless one of them adds a second factory real soon here. Take a look at the SCVs. The SCVs are completely equal right now. Nothing but 2 SCVs going to be separating them. However, the third orbital command is in fact in position for our evil genius just before his opponents. We'll see if that econ advantage does somehow come back for DeMuslim and play into a victory, or if the superior production capabilities, the infrastructure capabilities of Taeja do in fact give him this game. But it looks like DeMuslim is actually going to be adding up to 5 barracks of his own right now. Both these players just taking such a similar route. It's really incredible how similar everything is, whereas Combat Shield is going to be finishing up here relatively soon for our evil genius. There is actually no, or excuse me, Combat Shield is already completed for our liquid player. Both these players just kind of comfortable sitting back right now, macroing up at this time. Going to be looking for their opponent to make the first move. A couple of turrets going to be going down over here, wanting to prevent any kind of drop shenanigans from going out into the main right now. Nice foresight there by Taeja, with these armies starting to move out onto the map. Both players going to be sitting on 4 medevacs for the time being. And let's take a look at the Marine counts. The Marine count is actually heavily in favor of DeMuslim at this time, but a lot of the Marines aren't there yet, with a lot of these reactors just starting to pump away on these units, and even tanks going to be joining the fray without siege tech for the time being. I hope that DeMuslim doesn't forget that his opponent has already started his siege tech, and I honestly think that DeMuslim might be forgetting siege. So we'll see. A big stim there from our liquid player, and starting to pre-split his Marines as that siege tank pounds away, but no siege tech. This is actually going to be a brilliant arc here for DeMuslim, and Taeja, GG's right there. 12 minutes of build-up, and just immediately the game goes to DeMuslim as he hits a timing where he just has superior count of Marines. His opponent, banking on that siege tech to protect him, was about 40 seconds away from getting siege tech, and DeMuslim takes the first blow here in this best-of-5 series. Thank you for joining me. I am Beef, your casting host. Going to be going into game number 2 very soon here in this best-of-5 series. We'll see you next